I call this meeting of the Schertz-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present. Yes, we are. And that this meeting has been duly called and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 6:01. Let's stand up for, oh, Dee Dee. Roll call.
All board members are present except Mr. Westbrook.
Let's stand up for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, Mr. Westbrook is out of town tonight and will not be here. So we're just going to move on to our public meeting to discuss the proposed budget and proposed tax rate. Ms. Maloney is going to start off with the overview of the proposed 2018-2019 budget and the proposed 2018-2019 tax rate.
Thank you, Vice President Dreisbach, members of the board, Dr. Gibson, and members of the community. Here it is, August 30th, and it feels like it's a lifetime since school has started, but here we are to adopt the budget tonight, the budget and tax rate. Just to let you know, the budget guidelines in the state of Texas for public schools is the school board must adopt a budget for the following funds by August 31st. One for the general operating fund, child nutrition, and debt service. All of the other special revenue funds are approved by the Texas Education Agency or the federal government and are not approved by the Board of Trustees. As we were planning the budget for the entire, seemed like the whole school year last year, our enrollment projections were on the low growth scenario at 15,720 students. The beauty of being able to start school early is our actual enrollment on day 9, that was today, August 30th, is 15,662 students. So very, very close. At this time last year, at the 2-week period, we were about 325 kids short. So you can see that it looks like we are on track to indeed meet our enrollment projection. We base it on a rate of attendance at 96%, and the certified values came in at 6%, and our budget is based on that. The taxable value of our property is around $5.7 million. We kept the same pupil to teacher ratio, $5.7 billion. We kept the same pupil, a little bit more. So it's big numbers. Pupil teacher ratios for staffing purposes were kept the same from the 17-18 to the 18-19. In our K through 4 classrooms where we exceed the 22-to-1 ratio, since we do carry that 1 to 24 in grades 2 through 4, we will apply for the class waiver in October for those waivers, for those classrooms that have students beyond the 22-to-1 ratio. I also would like to call your attention to the fact that the compensation plan, the 18-19 compensation plan, was approved by the Board of Trustees back in July on the 24th, and the plan does provide the option for the superintendent to recommend and the Board of Trustees to authorize a one-time lump sum compensation payment at any time during the 18-19 school year to eligible district employees if the board determines that financial resources are adequate at that time. In reviewing the proposed tax rates that we will bring for your approval for adopting tonight, we are keeping the maintenance and operation tax rate at $1.04, and the INS tax rate will remain at 45 cents. You can see that the average value of the residents in the district has increased by about $10,000. The taxes due on an average residence is an increase of about $150, and if you took that down to the average cost per month, that'd be about $12 per month on the average residence for those taxable value increases. Since 85% of our budget is based on staffing, we do like to break that down. We have 1,889 employees. 50.4% are teachers. Non-professionals, campus and non-campus, represent 721. Non-campus professionals represent 113, and the campus professionals represent 103 persons. When we talk about the revenue for our general operating budget, we've often talked during budget workshops and things like that we're a 50-50, pretty much a 50-50 district. But I would like to draw your attention to the fact that $5.2 million of the state's contribution is TRS on behalf and is not a part of the formula. It's based on what the state, the payment that we make on the state's behalf. And so if you look at the difference between the local taxes and the state funding for the formula, you can see that the local taxes do indeed exceed the state funding. And we do get a little bit of federal revenue, which would be our SHARS, impact aid, and our ROTC. So how do we spend this money in the 18-19 proposed budget by major object? As I said, 85% is in salaries and benefits, 9.4% in contracted services, 3% in supplies and materials, and 2.2% in travel, insurance, fees, and dues. We do have one department that went ahead and made a capital outlay line item adjustment in their budget. That's the maintenance department, and that's where you will see that $8,000. In child nutrition, the revenue is a little bit different. We receive quite a bit of federal revenue, a little bit of state revenue based on our formulas for the child nutrition program, and then our local revenue representation right there at 56.8%. And this is how the money and the proposed budget for child nutrition, where we see that money going. And you can see that it's also different from our general operating budget, and that supplies and materials, i.e. the food that the children consume, takes up about 50% of that budget. In debt service, the revenue that we are projecting to generate this school year, the local revenue makes up 94% of that, and the state revenue makes up 6%. There's no federal revenue for our INS side. And what you'll notice in the overall is that the proposed appropriations for the debt service side exceed the revenue that we're going to generate during this school year. So we have an other revenue source, and you'll see the footnote both here and in the aggregate form on the next page, that in addition to the revenue generated by our tax rate of 45 cents, the district will need to utilize a portion of the INS fund balance and the anticipated proceeds from a planned refinancing of $20 million in bonds November 2018. More coming on that at a board meeting in the future. And so for those three funds, general operating, child nutrition, and debt service, you have the one pager that indicates all three across the board for a total all funds budget of $158,334,350 for the proposed budget. And since the board does approve the budget by function, that is what this page represents, the functions 11 through 99. Both the budget, all three, the budget, the percentage total of the total budget, and a dollar amount per student.
Can I hold you up for just a second? On the extracurricular activities, does that include stipends for coaches? Yeah.
For the stipends for coaches, yes.
That would be included inside there?
It's in that for the coaches, because it doesn't have anything to do with we code that to function 36.
Okay. Nah, I just want to point out, I mean, I was watching some blog thing last night about people just slamming, especially Texas schools, for spending too much money on athletics and football in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when it comes down to it, we're spending 2.3% of our budget on extracurricular, which includes band, athletics. I mean, the whole works, right?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
And this is the, by law, this is the form that we use to post on the website. And just to your I'll just make this point. As you can see, for the 17-18 to the 18-19 in the area of extracurricular activities, the 17-18 is the actual budget, so we had EPP items in that budget that are going to make it more than what our budget is based on this year. So, to your point, yes. So this is the form that we will, if the budget is approved this evening, we will change this to adopted budget and post it on our website tomorrow morning, bright and early. And I'm going to go, wait. And thank you very much, and we'll have questions at this time.
Any questions?
Couple.
Mr.
Hey,
Crew?
when, on these numbers that you pulled from the county appraiser,
Uh-huh.
when did y'all pull those?
From the county appraiser, the certified values came in on the 25th of July.
The only reason I asked, because I pulled them this week, and they don't match.
Oh, really?
That
We
they
have
went
to go
down.
through, we have to publish in the newspaper based on the certified values
Uh-huh.
that they pull, so protests are still under there. But I can
No, I'm
get that
just-
information,
and
yeah.
They said that the protests are still pending, but it's, if you go back to, I think it's like the third slide.
Did you pull just for Guadalupe County, though?
I did,
Okay.
because they said Comal and Bear, so this includes all three of them already?
Well, this has Bear County in here as
Just Bear,
well.
but not Comal?
No, Bear and Guadalupe.
Okay,
Those are only two counties. And then we'll have the certified rolls for you in the
Correct.
agenda items tonight.
okay. And second question is on the items that talk about security, that includes the new, two new SROs, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And function 53?
Let me ask, I don't know, it's one of the slides where it breaks down expenditures by percentage.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't that one. It was kind of a, I don't know what you want to call a graph, but where it's across. Yeah,
Okay.
that one there.
Oh, okay. By function.
Okay, that right there. Okay, so somebody off the street asked us how much we spend for administration. What would be the answer?
We would aggregate the function 23 and function 21 and function 31. Or I'm sorry, function 41.
All right, and then do you guys get guidelines? I mean, every district's going to be different, you know, but do you get kind of guidelines on here are the parameters of where you should be spending on, how much you should spend on administration and the average district, I mean, things like that, so we know we're not bloated or, I mean, you could also underspend. I mean, you're not putting enough money into certain things. So do we have any idea like where we stand when it comes to administration?
Our administrative cost ratio is well below what the state is. We received all 10 points on the first administration that just was released.
It's like .065, I think.
No, yeah,
Of the
very low.
I mean,
total budget. And we can actually show that pretty clearly because we get that number from the state.
We looked
Yeah.
a little bit about with that in the budget committee too,
Okay.
when we did that.
Yeah, 'cause I know, again, so that was another thing I mean, we spent too much on athletics, extracurricular, and we spent too much on those fat cat administrators. I mean, you guys have heard that, right? And then I just looked at, you look at the numbers and it's actually a lot less than most private businesses would be spending.
Yeah.
And we're actually below what I would consider the state average, right, as
Yes,
far as
well
this
below.
district goes. And you guys probably wouldn't have so much to do if somebody else wasn't making us do all these things, right?
Well, I will point out what Mr. Eisbeck said. We'll be meeting for the budget workshop on Tuesday evening, and we're going to talk about some of those things, actually.
Yeah, to whatever extent it'd be beneficial for the public to really know I know TASB puts out those graphs about how much we truly spend on public education, but again, just in-house as well to let our folks know that when, because they'll read those kind of things too. I mean, it's just the stuff you hear off the street. You spent too much on athletics, too much on administration, yada, yada. And if we actually let people know what we do spend, I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job with that. So.
Any more questions? Okay. Good.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I'm just going to say this, and I'll try to keep it brief because I know we've got things to do, but I also have to look myself in the mirror, which is bad enough as it is, but I'm disappointed in how we've done the budget or how we've handled the budget this year. And I'm not talking about the administration. I'm talking about this school board. I'm disappointed that we don't have enough faith in this community. Obviously, we don't have as much faith in them as they have in us, or at least they have in the past. I'm not sure they're going to in the future, but in fact, what we've left on the table, a little over $4 million, because we didn't call for the TRE. We don't even give the community an opportunity to vote on it. And I think that hurts this budget. I think we'll feel it. This is $4 plus million we won't be getting. Yeah, we could look at it next year, but that's next year. We're already down the road. I'm disappointed that we're letting the staffs down on these campuses that are working hard, because that additional 2 pennies would have helped alleviate some of the losses they feel on a daily basis for not having things that they need. I'm disappointed. I just, you know, I've rarely been disappointed in the actions of this board, and I'm not going to question somebody's motive. That's not for me to do, but I do question our action. I was disappointed in this board one other time in my 11 years on this board, and that was with the naming of a school. That didn't have any impact near what this is going to have on our board, or on our district, I mean. So we reflect on that. We will deal with that all year long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pivito. I know we're going to be looking, I'm serving on the budget committee, and there'll be some things that we'll definitely have to look at as we continue, and we've already started looking at, and observations that'll be made and reflected actually Tuesday night at the workshop.
I'll bring it up again Tuesday night too, and I'll be bringing this up probably many nights.
Let me, so I'll just, with all due respect, kind of throw a different, you know, viewpoint on this. I mean, so I've been doing this long enough to know back in the days when we were nowhere inside of being one of the highest paying school districts in this area when it comes to teachers, where we had next to nothing in the fund balance, when every building around here was old, every school bus was old, and over a lengthy period of time, you had a board that's been very conscientious and conservative and frugal with its money, in contrast to a lot of our neighbors. And a lot of decisions have been made over the years that were tough at the time and not exactly popular. A lot of people wanted us to have two full-fledged stadiums, because the kids still wanted to have their own stadium, and some board members said no, and ultimately saved us millions of dollars. Some people wanted to put a $5 million press box over here at Clemens, and board members said no, because it just really wasn't the frugal thing to do at the time. And we've had to make cuts from time to time and freeze salaries from time to time. And I think it's those tough decisions that have actually led us to always have a pretty good budget that I think we can all be proud of. I mean, we're not facing the situations that Judson and South San and some of these other districts are facing, and it's largely because we have made those tough decisions over the years. And nobody wants to do that, and that's not a fun thing to do. But I think, I hear your point, David, but I think my take on what we did is we're actually going to be stronger, and when we come back this time next year to possibly look at that topic again, I think we're going to be in a much better position. But I just think that, I mean, I'm proud of you, the finance team we've had over the years. I mean, if there's anything this district's been good at, it's been our budget. I mean, we just haven't had the problems that other districts had, and it's not luck. I mean, it's because we've made good decisions over those years, and we're in a semi-favorable position that we still have the finances to do the things that we need to do, and then make the cuts that are necessary, and then come back even stronger next year. So.
I argue that we don't have the finances to do the things we need to do, and the fact again that's all we were asking for was to move forward to allow the community to vote on this. We weren't making that decision. The community would have made the decision, yes or no, and that's what I'm saying. And I think that point has been lost in this whole conversation, that we weren't making the decision to ask to put the 2 pennies on the tax rate. We were asking the community if they would approve that, just like we do with bond issues. And you know, to say that, well, this still wouldn't get us where we need to be. Well, you know, that's like buying a house. You know, nobody would buy a house if they needed 100% financing, because that's not going to happen. You know, you're lucky if you get 95, 90%. And most of us wouldn't own a house if we had to have 100% financing to buy it. So that's, you know, and I don't want to belabor this, but I just, you know, this is not about being frugal. This is about getting what we need when we had an opportunity to get it for 2 pennies. 2 pennies. Again, my whole point is we didn't allow the community to vote on this thing. We heard from few people who are against it. People I talked to questioning, what are y'all, a bunch of idiots for not doing that? I guess I talked to different people. Maybe we're all crazy. I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm disappointed that we didn't give our community an opportunity when we had the opportunity to give them a chance to vote on it. It's the same thing as a bond issue. We can't just build a school. We have to ask the community to vote on a bond issue. We can't just put 2 pennies on the tax rate. We have to ask the community to vote on that. We didn't do that. That's my whole point.
Thank you, Ms. Maloney. Any more questions for her?
Yeah, I guess, so when did you guys have the budget meeting, the committee meeting?
We had August the 15th, and then we went in very much detail, and you'll hear about that
Yeah,
on
I guess-
Tuesday night. And that is we're looking at the following year's budget now.
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, it's open to the public, right? I mean,
Not our
you-
committee meeting.
No.
The budget workshop will be open on
Right,
Tuesday
okay,
night.
okay. So I just
Yes.
I was just going to ask him because again, this is the umpteenth year, and it's always kind of amazes me how we have our one bright guest here tonight, or a couple looks like, but biggest thing that we do, and we just
3.
I don't recall ever having more than a handful of people here at this meeting for some reason. But yeah, I was just questioning whether or not you guys had anybody at the budget committee meeting.
The committee meetings aren't open,
Yeah,
but
okay, all right.
the workshop will be open on Tuesday night, and we'll have those multiple times this year.
We on the board committee asked for there to be a public comment section for the budget committee.
And there
Not the
are,
budget committee, the budget workshop. So
and on the budget committee, there are 2 from the public that are serving on it, as well as 3 board members. At this time, we're going to have public comments concerning the 2018-2019 proposed budget and proposed tax rate. The Board of Trustees will now hear public comments. In order to provide consistency and fairness to all individuals, public comments will be heard in accordance with Board Policy BED Local and procedures outlined in Administration Regulation BED. Comments should be limited to topics such as policies, curriculum, and facilities. Any direct criticism of a specific employee will not be heard during public comments and should be considered separately as provided in board policy. In this context, individuals are cautioned to not identify any employee by name or by any combination of words or descriptions which could identify the employee to another individual. Public comments will be limited to individuals who, signed up, but this is a public hearing, right? Okay. It'll be open. No public comment shall exceed 5 minutes. To ensure in compliance with time limitations, a yellow card will be held up by the board secretary at 4 minutes, and a red card will be held up at 5 minutes. If you have any issue you'd like to discuss with an administrative staff member, complete the designated form located on the table at the back of the room and place it in the box. Your concern and contact information will be forwarded to the appropriate staff member. Anyone want to speak in the public comments concerning the budget? Dr. Petruski? Thank you, Dr. Petruski.
Tap it. Good evening, Dr. Gibson, school board members. In the previous school board meetings, we have found out that we have a lot more money in the fund balance than what had been previously known. Different changes. People were questioning what the exact finances were in our school district, financial health of the school district. I contacted the Texas Education Agency regarding our finances. And according to official documents, I'm happy to report that the agency said that we have money, lots of money. And they used official documents that have been submitted by the school district. TEA officials said that information provided by the school district needs to be accurate and transparent. So I asked, one of the issues that you have that was presented just a few minutes ago by Ms. Maloney was regarding the one-time lump sum payment. I asked TEA officials if, by looking at our finance documents, if it would be possible at a 2% salary scale increase for an amount between $1 million to $2 million, according to our official documents, would that be possible? I was told yes. I asked if that salary scale increase would be possible in additional years beyond the current one, and they said yes. I asked, by doing this, would the district be putting its good financial standing, would it be compromised by doing this? And I was told that we had enough funds to where we would not be compromising the financial health of the school district. This school district has paid thousands of dollars to have an employee engagement survey done. Of those survey items, there have been two. The two lowest scoring items for the past 3 years have been the item that states, "My pay is fair for the work I do." This past school year, employees rated this at a low 44%, down from the previous year of 51%, and down by the 2 years before that of 53%. The lowest survey item, my benefits package, is good compared to others in this industry. This past year, employees rated this at a low 15%. The previous year, 19%, and the year before that, 23%. Even though we're told that this is one of the highest paying school districts in the area, I asked teachers why they rated this items so low, and they said that a big chunk of the money is taken out from health insurance. They gave examples of Northeast ISD contributing a lot more, and therefore those employees at Northeast ISD see a greater paycheck. They said once we also lost the STEP system and went to a midpoint system, salaries have also been a little bit more ambiguous to determine. So I go back to officials from the Texas Education Agency, and they said that we are in good financial health. I ask that you please strongly consider going to a salary scale increase as opposed to a one-time payment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Petruski. Any others for the public comments? No. Okay. Next, we're going to move to action items. Request for board approval on the 2018 certified tax roll from Guadalupe County and Bear County Appraisal Districts presented by Ms. Maloney.
Thank you, Vice President Dreisbeck, members of the board, and Dr. Gibson. The chief appraisers of the Guadalupe Appraisal District and the Bear County Appraisal District have certified and submitted the appraisal rolls as approved by the respective appraisal review boards for calendar year beginning January 1st, 2018 and ending December 31st, 2018, and have delivered to Darrell John, tax assessor collector for the Shirt-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District, a statement of the total amount of appraised, assessed, and taxable value of property as of January 1st, 2018. Also included is the value for properties under protest at this time of submission for the assessment rolls lying within the Shirt-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District. And we have the attachments for both counties included with this item, and it will come back before you once they are aggregated, and you will approve the tax roll at a later meeting.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Miss Vice President, I move the Board of Trustees accept the certified appraised roll from Guadalupe Appraisal District and Bear County Appraisal District for tax year 2018 for the Shirt-Cibolo Universal City ISD as presented.
Any discussion?
About how long does it take for them to get the
Sorry.
protest done and we get a final?
You remember it was a little late last year because Darrell John was new in his position. The normal period for that is we would bring it back to you for action in October.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Crew?
I just want to follow up on a couple things. Number one is to say that I think, and we've said this numerous times, I think y'all have worked very hard on presenting several different options and the budget. And for me personally, at no time do I discredit that. I think y'all have done exactly what we, as a board, as a majority, have asked you to do. And I just want to say I appreciate everything that y'all have done budget-wise. Appreciate that. And I say that from all departments because I know y'all all contributed to it. To kind of reinforce my opinion of what Gary said, you know, once again, I was one of the ones that voted no for the TRE, and I still agree with that was the right decision based on where we're at right now. I think with our current financial situation, with the way that I saw it, I still support my decision. I would like to say a few other things. Is one thing is we're not always going to agree up here. A while back there was an incident within the board that I was very adamant about, and I felt disappointed in the way that the board handled that. And personally, I thought it should have been handled differently. The board ultimately made a decision, and they handled it the way as the majority. I accepted it, and I moved on. That's how boards work. You know, the majorities vote, or the majority doesn't get the vote, and that's just how boards, the nature of the boards work. So, you know, I too have been disappointed on things up here. But on this particular issue, I would just like to say I think we're making the right decision, not doing the TRE, and I still support that. And like I said, I just want to say I appreciate all the hard work that y'all put into this, because I know you had to make several different budgets, and I know it was time consuming, and I appreciate all that work. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Okay. 5-1, motion passes. Next, we have request for board approval, the effective tax rate and rollback tax rate for the year 2018 for Shirt-Cibolo Universal City ISD, presented by Ms. Maloney.
Thank you so much, Vice President Dreisbeck, Dr. Gibson, members of the board. The tax assessor collector for the Shirt-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District has calculated the effective tax rate and the rollback rate for the district for tax year 2018. Section 26.04 of the Property Tax Code requires that the effective tax rate and the rollback rate be submitted to the Board of Trustees. And the attachment is included alongside this agenda item. I would like to remind the board that while the total tax rate is the same as it was last year, the effective rate is the rate that would generate the same tax levy from properties that existed in both years, not any new properties.
Any questions from Ms. Maloney? Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that the Board of Trustees approve to accept the effective tax rate and rollback tax rate for tax year 2018 as presented and as required by state law.
Second.
Any discussion? No. Ms. Maloney, we have to do that because legislators put that into effect, right? That we have to report that way?
Yes, and it'll also be reflective when we adopt the tax rate in a few minutes, because you have to show that that the taxable value is actually going up. It doesn't change the state funding, though, at all.
Right. Thank you. Let's take a vote. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? All right, the motion passes 6-0. The next is a request for board approval adoption of the 2018-2019 budget presented by Ms. Maloney.
As we presented in the public meeting previously, we have to adopt the budget. We are bringing to you tonight to adopt the budget for the general operating fund, the food service or child nutrition fund, and the debt service fund. There is a one-page overview attached for all three funds that was also included in the presentation.
Any questions for Ms. Maloney?
Probably should have raised this earlier, but just generally speaking, how are our fellow districts doing with their budget this year? I mean, stuff you read in the paper, everybody's having a really hard time. Their deficit budgets. I mean, some are having to really make some serious cuts. So a lot of times we live in our own little island over here, but how are we doing compared to everybody else?
You know, I'll defer to Dr. Gibson. I know that he
Yeah,
talks with the superintendents, and there's some people that are doing some things out of there.
I mean, I can give Northside approved a $32 million deficit budget last night. South Sand still struggling with the TRE. The standard, raise that we've seen in San Antonio did not occur. There were a few that gave it. Northside did give a raise, but they said we're taking it out of fund balance, basically, and they did. So I think what we're seeing is the constriction of the current state formula as it kind of hits the end of life, and that state funding goes down and down and down. I think everybody's grappling with it. Alamo Heights last week, had a lot of troubles with their.
Yeah.
East Central's giving they authorized a one-time in their compensation booklet.
Let me just add this. I mean, it may not be the right time either, but just so Greg Abbott, governor, the other day said something to the effect that he wants to pay teachers in the low six figures, I guess. So has there been any meat behind that statement, or how does that change anything?
No, all he did was just make a statement, and there's no legislative intent associated with that statement. So, I mean, it's just a statement. Now, he is
Was
the
there any
governor.
personal intent, or was it just, I don't know?
No, legislative intent means that people start planning to crunch numbers
Actually do it.
make presentations. That's right. And so that did not precipitate anybody crunching any numbers from any state organization.
So that's not something that the administrator world perceives as having any realistic aspect to it. I mean, that was.
No, not at this time when they're already facing a deficit of several $1 billion, at the start of it. Now, as the session progresses, if it makes his list of high priority items, then we'll start paying attention.
Okay.
But then my anxiety is going to be how much of that's going to get pushed to us, because it normally does.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Any more questions? I have a motion.
Madam President, I move the Board of Trustees adopt the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget for general fund, food service fund, and debt services fund as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? The motion passes. And I just want to say a personal thank you. I know how much not only the finance department, but every area has worked It seems like we've been working on that budget a long time, and with 2 budgets presented and lots of questions, and just being on the budget committee, the amount of information is overwhelming, but very informative. And I'm a numbers person, and it's still overwhelming. The regular public does not, and probably a lot of educators don't realize how complex the education funding is from the state, and Ms. Maloney's group does a great job of explaining it to us in easy terms to understand. And I know she goes out as well and explains to leadership teams and principals and all that. So I just want to thank y'all for all y'all's hard work.
Yeah, is this your first budget by yourself in a sense?
This is my first budget
Oh.
by myself, but
Okay,
it is
yeah.
a complete team effort. I mean, from Kelly's here representing all of the accountants, finance
Sure.
manager, and then, I mean, the work with the other departments it's a team effort.
Okay, because I know you guys would agree. I mean, you have some big shoes to fill, and the fact that, you know.
She didn't even call me today.
Because she's retired.
So again, good job with everything.
Madam President, I'd like to add my thanks to it. I think y'all did a wonderful job this last year. We've had balanced budgets for many years to come, and with the state, the burden the state puts on you to try and keep a balanced budget or any kind of budget at all, based on the fact that they're always changing things. I'm really amazed that y'all do as good a job as you do based on the fact of just everything changes. So I'd like to pass on my thanks. Good hard work, and we really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paige, I want to thank you guys, you and your staff. I've been reading that book that I got from you guys, and it frightens me to think of being in that position, that superintendent, some of the things that he had
That book is great.
to do. It's scary, and it could be us. I mean, I could see it happening at some point in time. But anyway, thank you. I appreciate the work you do, and I just can't understand Miss Giskini dropping you like that. I just don't. I thought I knew her better, but I guess not. But anyway, I've dealt with school budgets for 32 years now, and I can remember a time when we had zero-based budgets, and budgets were built from the ground up. And then you'd come back for your cuts, and 2 or 3, 4 times, you know, to cut things. And then we started doing the dollar per student, $110 for intermediate students or junior high students or whatever it is, and $130 for high school students, whatever. It got a little easier that time, because I remember a time when in this district where principals had to figure out what the salaries were going to be for the year and put it in the budget. They had to figure out all their costs, health and everything else, and it was frustrating because, again, you'd put all that in, then you'd have to come back and cut some of it, not all of it. But so I think the process has gotten a whole lot better. The problem we have right now, and the problem you guys face, is just dealing with with the finances the way they are with the state. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Another action item, we have a request for board approval, 2018-2019 maintenance and operation and debt service tax rates presented by Ms. Maloney.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eisbeck. The tax rate recommended is the rate which was previously proposed and discussed in the public meeting. This is the rate used to estimate tax revenue for the 18-19 budget. Again, the total tax rate is the same as last year. The percentage is calculated by comparing the proposed rate to the effective tax rate that generates the same levy from previous year from properties that existed in both years, and that is why the motion reads the way that it does.
Any questions?
Madam Vice President, I move the property tax be increased by the adoption rate of tax rate of 1.49000, which is effectively a 1.10% increase in the tax rate. The total tax rate consists of a tax rate of 1.04 for maintenance and operations and a rate of 0.045 for debt services.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, let me just make a comment. Just I know why the legislature did this, but that in big bold letters, this tax rate will raise more taxes than last year's tax rate. In other words, basically letting the public know that we're bringing in more money.
bringing in more on the local side. It does not account for what it does for the state side, which that reduces.
Which again, it doesn't say that part. That's what I'm
doesn't.
that's the point I'm trying to make. Just, so when we consider in inflation, and you consider in growth of our student population, and however the funding formula comes out, that doesn't necessarily mean that we get any more money per child, in other words.
It does not. It's
In
it's
fact,
the
we may
same
have
formula.
less. Okay, but then that's not in the bold letters, though. That's,
It's just, and remember from the slide in the presentation that showed that the average house value is increasing by 10,000. I mean, that's where that's coming from, but it doesn't show, once that goes up, the state funding goes down.
right, okay.
I've got one question. How much we losing this year? Okay, there's two questions. How much are we gaining in local revenue over last year for the coming year?
You know what, Mr. Finley, I don't know. Do we have last year's revenue?
And say the question again, I didn't.
The different, how much, what's the tax, what's the dollar amount of our local effort? In other words, how much we're bringing in based on the 104?
I have to get back with you. I mean, the local definitely increased, but I'd have to do a side-by-side to show you from last year to this year what that did. But I can get to
The
you.
second part of the question is, based on that amount, is the state going to take the same amount or more away from us?
Well, they're going, it's just, it's based on the formula. Once you raise more and you input that in, the state goes down. I
Right.
mean, if you've seen, the template is like one big template, you enter in your taxable values, and then you see a diminish. And it's not a one-to-one, it's dependent upon what kind of kids you're serving, those types of things. But once you plug all of those numbers in, and how many pages on the spreadsheet? 7 or 8, 9, 10. And once you do all of that, it'll show your state revenue and your local revenue.
Okay, so it's not a one-for-one. It's based on a complicated formula based on
Yes.
all kinds of different things. But the only reason I'm saying is that I've read article after article in papers all over the state, and say like Dallas ISD would pick up $86 million, and the state would take $96 million away from them. And I've read articles all over the state about that kind of thing. So it's not a one-for-one.
Well, chapter
Experiencing the
41,
same
yeah.
thing.
Right, so that's one thing that I was trying to put out there is that even though our revenue may be going at the local level, the state is not, is even worse than just taking one-for-one many times.
Well, we're not a chapter 41 district,
No,
so.
no.
Yeah, the legislative budget board's numbers, as interpreted by some state legislators, shows that there's a decrease from 50% 10 years ago to 38% in real dollars in state share. And
Yeah.
that's the big macro number that we're all dealing with. So in that 12%, we're all feeling this.
And that's kind of what I'm trying to get to, is that it's not a one-for-one. So even though the state's not giving us any more money, they're actually, in many cases, taking more away than what we're getting in new local revenue.
Yeah, and
So
the best way to
get that out
create a
there.
distraction around that happening is to pass laws so that you gotta put things in the paper like we just read a while ago.
Okay, thank you. I just want to get that on the record, so.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say on the discussion, is it looks like we're raising the tax rate, but we're not. We still have $1.04 for M&O and 45 cents for our debt service.
Correct.
And so the way that the law says we have to write that, it looks a little differently. Any more discussion? All
It's the
right.
golden rule. Those that have the gold make the rules.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes. Request for board approval, final year in 2017-2018 budget amendments presented by Ms. Maloney.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Dreisbach and members of the board, Dr. Gibson. Today at about 3 o'clock, we've finished up trying to make our best projection for final amended year budget, and Ms. Rowe is passing that out to you at this time. We're very conservative when we post for our final amended budget, and what I would remind you of, that this will not be final until the audit in December. We are still paying bills through the middle of September. Our September payroll has to run so we can match it against our accruals. Some things I would point out, we had a $5.6 million in budget amendments. And currently, it looks like that we will only have to take out of fund balance or when we compare our fund balance from last year to this year, $3.3 million, and it will get better than that, I believe, as we close out the budget. And then with the audit, and then on the debt service fund, I will remind you that we did use a portion of the INS fund balance and proceeds from the bond sale to help with our payment last year. So this is the best estimate at this time, and we'll be bringing the audit back to you in December.
Any questions for Ms. Maloney?
I've got one. How much did we spend on EPP this year?
I believe it,
It was
I
supposed
think
to.
around $5.3 million.
Yeah, I was going to say 5.1 or 5.3.
Yeah.
Okay, say 5.3, so we're gonna end up taking 3.3 out of fund balance to cover the difference. What's the difference, about 2 million?
Looks like about 2.3 million in savings.
So we actually had increased revenue of about $2 million to cover that difference in our overall budget.
Or no spending.
By not, by putting the brakes on, when the students, we did not reach our enrollment, we were very conservative in our approaches
But
after
there was still $2 million of additional revenue that came in during the course of the year over and above our budget that we had that we started with, that was able to cover the EPP. And
Well, I wouldn't say it's from the revenue at all, it's from the expenditure side. We did not. Cost avoidance,
Okay.
yes.
That
I
was
mean,
in the budget
And
that we
actually,
didn't spend.
we covered that in the, we're covering that in the budget committee to showing our revenue
Yeah.
sources by month, and it was not a
No.
windfall in revenue in any
Okay.
way, shape, or form. It's mainly due to
Then what I'm saying is
expenditure cost avoidance.
the EPP did not come out exclusively out of the fund balance. It did come out of
No,
revenue.
well, we made a
What's the difference between the total EPP?
2.3.
2.3.
Okay, that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
2.3
Million.
negative or 2.3 positive?
2.3 positive,
Right.
yeah,
So we saved in other areas to cover
the expenses of the EPP.
expenses of the EPP.
Yeah, there was no extra revenue.
Okay.
Any more questions? Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the final year-end 2017-2018 budget amendments as presented, revenue and expenditures, general operating fund, food service fund, and debt service fund.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the motion passes. So, next one is a request for board action, Texas Association of School Boards, TASB stipend application to cover the cost of conference registration to attend the National School Board Association of the NSBA Advocacy Institute in Washington, D.C. on January 27th through the 29th of 2019. And Mr. Westbrook was going to present that, but we can talk about. So we'll have to have. It's a advocacy institute, so it's at the federal level that TASB, and I believe we can nominate a trustee for a stipend from them as well to cover some of the cost of registration. And that's coming up. Those nomination forms are due by the 14th of September. So if anyone has any interest in attending, that would be something that we need to approve at this time. And also for expenditures out of local funds. Yeah. Yeah, if a trustee is not only interested in advancing their advocacy skills, but also experience at building relations with political leaders at the local and state level. And I believe Mr. Edmond went 1 year, correct?
Well, I'll admit this, I've probably been about 10 times.
Oh, okay,
But,
never mind. I just remember
Yeah,
the
I would
last
say,
time.
I mean, in all honesty, it's just like the NSBA conference. I think we ought to at least have one person go, like on a rotating basis. You know, you wouldn't have the same person go. I got to go because being a part of the TASB board, but just if anybody wants to go, I think it's a good experience. I'd be honest in telling you, you probably don't have a heck of a lot of impact. You go to about 2 to 3 days of sessions, which I think are fairly interesting. Just a different crowd. It's people from all over the country. Generally on the Tuesday, then you have the day on the Hill, just like we have here in Austin. And you try to line up meetings with all the congressmen, senators, So it's an educational experience to go through all that. Now, whether or not any of them actually listen to anything we say, I don't really have a whole lot of faith or confidence in that. But I still think it's a good experience if anybody wanted to go to it.
Any interest?
Yeah, actually, I am.
Okay.
So,
And just to let you know, too, I think the tuition is usually about $950. I mean, it's quite a bit. So
They
and I
cover-
think they try to spread it around the state to make sure there's somebody in at least every congressional district that gets the scholarship. I mean, it's a TASB thing that was passed a few years ago. So it saves $1,000.
Mhm.
yeah, I'll put my name in there, and if something happens, we can always withdraw, but, yeah, I would be interested in going. It
We can
sounds like
also
something
submit one as an alternate too, if anybody
Right.
else is interested.
I'll go as an alternate.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion?
Madam Vice President, I move the Board of Trustees approve Ed Finley as the SCUCISD nominee and myself as the alternate for consideration to receive a stipend from TASB to cover the cost of conference registration for the National School Board Association Advocacy Institute to be held in Washington, D.C., January 27 through 29, 2019.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, the motion passes. Okay, and I believe we are done. No hires or anything. All right. The board is adjourned at 6:57.